ABC Television News Network presents the Sunoco News Final. When you stop at Sunoco, you go with confidence. Sunoco News Final with ABC's worldwide staff. Latest news from reporters assigned tonight's top stories.
And those stories are: Kennedy-Nehru communique indicates talks between the world leaders produced few policy changes. Failure of 3 engines may have caused the crash of the non-scheduled Constellation in Virginia. De Gaulle still hopeful of a settlement in Algeria despite tonight's machine gun killing of the police commissioner in Algiers. A close look at these top stories in a moment.
He said I'd have no trouble starting.
Why don't you try those dry gasoline?
You'll start right up, he said.
The dry gasoline.
That's the last gallon. What's that? Dry gasolines?
Yes, dry gasolines at Sunoco.
Yes, this winter, pull in at the friendly Sunoco sign. Chase away winter worries. And put summertime in your car with Sunoco's dry gasolines. Every drop of Sunoco's custom blended gasolines has been scientifically formulated, specially controlled for dryness. You get protection against stalling and gas line freeze-ups, and get quick starts, fast warm-ups. This winter, leave your winter worries at Sunoco and put summertime in your car with Sunoco's custom blended dry gasolines. When you stop at Sunoco, you go with confidence.
John Rolfson, ABC, the White House. President Kennedy and India's Prime Minister Nehru have ended 4 days of talks. With every indication, their agreements and disagreements on world issues remain about the same. But both have found the talks useful and rewarding. For one thing, their future dealings will be easier for the relaxed and friendly personal relationship that has developed in intimate discussion and in social encounters, such as tonight's climactic dinner given by the Prime Minister at the torch-lighted Indian Embassy. Their joint communique today listed many common points of view, including a nuclear test ban treaty with controls and right of access to Berlin. Common views known, however, from before. American officials tonight stress that the talks were not meant to be and were not negotiations to change particular stands. It is suggested that what was gained from the American point of view is that Mr. Nehru, just back from an intensive exposure to Khrushchev in Moscow, was given a forceful presentation of the American outlook by the very articulate president. It is expected, for example, that Mr. Nehru has a much fuller understanding of the American view of the communist menace to South Vietnam, and more than that he knows the United States believes India can and should take a much greater responsibility for maintaining the independence of Southeast Asian countries. But officials say, with no commitment sought or given, whether Mr. Nehru's fuller appreciation of Mr. Kennedy's views will result in changes in India's policies is something only the future will tell. Now, Jules Bergman reports on that Virginia air disaster.
Civil Aeronautics Board investigators tonight have established that 3 engines may have failed in the crash of that unscheduled Constellation near Richmond, Virginia. 74 Army recruits are known dead and 3 crew members, but there may have been 4 more GIs aboard. Army records aren't clear. Pilot Ronald Conway, in shock and tears, told CAB probers today he got a red warning light on his fuel system, decided to go around the field. The flight engineer, Bill Poitras, told the probers number 4 engine surged in and out. After that, tragedy. Pilot Conway, with 3 engines gone, desperately tried to hold his altitude, scraping the trees, and finally smashed into a swamp. Only Conway and Poitras escaped. The 4 engines will be taken to Washington for detailed analysis. 2 of the engines had just been overhauled, 2 were about due to be. CAB tonight told ABC the clues point to fuel problems, either lack of gas or dirty fuel. This, too, will be determined. The 15-year-old Constellation was in good shape as far as known. The non-sked carrier, Imperial Airlines, had bought the Connie 6 months ago from Capital Airlines. Imperial, before changing its name from Regina Airlines, had been fined by FAA and several of its pilots suspended for unsafe practices. The massive detective work involved in finding the cause of the crash tonight is well underway. And CAB tells me this is one crash they expect to have the answer on soon, but not in time for those who perished in a Virginia swamp. Jules Bergman, ABC News. More trouble in Algeria tonight. John McVeigh has the story.
René Joubert, police commissioner in Algiers, was killed tonight with machine gun fire shortly after he'd entered a cafe. He was the 3rd chief of Algiers police to be killed within this past year. The killers,
The right-wing secret army, the group that hates de Gaulle, believes it can turn the clock back, master Algeria, seize control of France. Tonight I asked Algerian Muslim nationalists why they did not put the finger on ex-General Salon and others of de Gaulle's enemies who want to crush the nationalists and also de Gaulle. I was told all Algiers knows where the rebel officers are, but army and police officials in Algiers itself protect them, warn them to leave when Gaullist authorities close in. President de Gaulle, seen here in Corsica, declares he's confident that France will begin negotiations with the Algerian nationalists. They say some of the right-wing haters want to kill this man, the leader who virtually alone rallied his country against the Nazis in the last war, gave France its pride again. But in his tour through southern France today, he has always mingled with the crowd. He's a Frenchman like that other historic Frenchman Bayard so many hundred years ago, of whom it can be said, sans peur, without fear. Today, President de Gaulle expressed his confidence in a Franco-Algerian solution to the problem, appealed to Europeans in Algeria for cooperation. He has talked to the right-wing extremists as people who make policy with bombs. The question is, will the Muslim nationalists recognize that de Gaulle is their best hope, help crush the outlaw army men, so reason, not the Tommy guns of tonight, can prevail in Algeria? John McVeigh, ABC, the Foreign Desk. And now, worldwide events caught by ABC cameras in a moment.
Oh, those happy little jobs every autumn. Put up the storm windows, rake the leaves, all the leaves. But there's one important job you can leave to a neighbor, your neighborhood Sunoco dealer. He's the man who can best prepare your car for winter. His winter changeover starts with complete lubrication of every vital wear point. Then he'll drain out that tired summer oil that's been contaminated with dirt and sludge. Sludge that can clog oil screens and cause excessive wear. He'll refill with Sunoco's all-weather motor oil, Sunoco Special. He'll check the battery. If you need a new one, Sunoco offers the finest. And, of course, he'll check your radiator. Add Sunoco Antifreeze. When he's finished, your car is ready for the tough winter driving ahead. So make a date this week for Sunoco's custom service winter changeover. When you stop at Sunoco, you go with confidence.
I'm Don Goddard with stories on the policeman at the Plaza, the Polaris, and the Princess. The Princess is visiting Hong Kong these days. Alexandra, daughter of the Duchess of Kent and a cousin to Queen Elizabeth. Part of the job of British royalty, you know, visiting the colonies and the Commonwealth nations. The Queen herself, widely traveled before and after she ascended the throne, has begun an African tour. For the Princess, her first trip to the bustling Crown colony where East meets West. The city dressed up for the occasion, and both the people and the Princess seem to enjoy it. A first exclusive look at America's newest Polaris missile submarine, the Ethan Allen, biggest sub ever built. 7,000 tons, so fast airplane controls are used. Top speed secret, but more than 30 miles per hour. The first submarine to have her own sick bay and doctor. Actually, less radiation inside the nuclear sub than on the surface. The heart of the sub, 16 Polaris missiles launched from these giant tubes. Now at sea off the Florida coast, the Ethan Allen is test-firing the brand-new 1,750-mile range A-2 Polaris missile. She has now fired 6 of them successfully. Our 6th Polaris missile submarine soon to be operational. A romantic story at the Plaza Hotel, one of New York's most fashionable landmarks. The manager, Neil Lang, got to know the cop on the beat, Severio Sauridis, a singer. Now, after patrolling outside the plaza, Petroleum Sauridis has been hired to sing inside. ABC's Ed Silverman interviews him.
Patrolman Sauridis, your publicity releases say you can sing. How about a sample?
Well, how about Que Gelida Manina from La Boheme? Que gelida manina se la lasci scaldar, cercar che giova, al buio non si trova.
Anyone ever catch you singing on the beat?
Well, very often somebody would turn around and give me a second look like, what was that I heard?
New York success story, from cop to canary. Now, more news and pictures. The new president of Ecuador, Carlos Julio Aurosmena, today spoke out for friendly relations with Cuba. The leftist president defended a trip he took to Moscow last summer, but he brought a note of calm by appointing a middle-of-the-road cabinet. He was wildly cheered in the capital by crowds who bore a coffin, symbolically burying his predecessor, Jose Velasco Ibarra. The new president took power after Air Force jets bombed the Velasco forces out of the picture. Communication with Ciudad Trujillo is difficult tonight. This trouble, together with earlier reports today of troop and tank movements in the Dominican Republic, indicate a possible military alert. And South Africa's foreign minister, Eric Lowe, defended his country's white supremacy policies in the United Nations today. To expel his country, the foreign minister warned, would mean the end of the United Nations. And President Kennedy has accepted an invitation to speak to the National Association of Manufacturers on December 6th. The address comes just a day before his speech to the AFL-CIO convention. ABC's Washington office also learned today that the president is thinking about a trip to Venezuela and Colombia. And in basketball tonight, Detroit 116, Boston 110, and in hockey, Detroit 2, Boston 1, Montreal 5, Toronto 2. This scene at the London airport this morning with a native girl from Ghana and the Queen was but a charming prelude to tonight's scenes in Accra. The worry over Queen Elizabeth's safety was dispelled when 500,000 cheering, drum-crashing Ghanaians turned out to hail the sovereign. And those are tonight's TV photos, and that's the Sunoco News Final for this Thursday. For the ABC News team around the world, see you tomorrow.
The Sunoco News Final has been presented by the ABC Television News Network and by Sunoco. When you stop at Sunoco, you go with confidence. Join us tomorrow night for the Sunoco News Final.